We'll call the Apopka CRA meeting to order. Jim Hitt, lead us out.
Thank you, Mayor. Jim Hitt, Community Development Director and CRA Director, for the time being. This is the second portion of the Station Street project, the development agreement between the City of Apopka, the Apopka Community Redevelopment Agency, and Standard Investment and Holdings, LLC. What I did, I prepared kind of a highlight of the development agreement and some of the primary sections that pertain to that. But just as a backup, on February 21st, 2024, the Apopka CRA and the City Council did approve the single proposal submitted by Standard Investments and Holdings for the Station Street project. And that is what is being considered for tonight's meeting. Obviously, the recommendation is to approve the development agreement for the Station Street project, as I'll be presenting. So if you have your iPads or your agenda open, this is on, starts at the development agreement itself starts on page 5 of 47. So this is a fairly lengthy development agreement, but it does cover quite a bit of information, which is what I alluded to when we were talking about the proposal itself. That's why it was kind of hard to nail down exactly all the main parameters of the development agreement itself. But again, the development agreement is between Apopka, the City of Apopka, the CRA, and Standard Investments and Holdings. On page 2, to start out with, the overall site is 3.43 acres, which will be subdivided into 2 separate lots by way of the city's platting process itself. The first lot 1, which I'll be referring to throughout this presentation, is Lot 1 and Lot 2. Lot 1 will consist of approximately 2.43 acres. We won't know the exact acreage until we get the plat done and the parameters and locations of the buildings, the parking lot, and the event space, and where the driveways are, things like that for that, but it's approximately that. This lot will be conveyed to the city, by the city to the developer for the developer to construct a maximum of, maximum of 60 apartments. The associated residential parking, there is a portion for public parking, which will have no fewer than 30 parking spaces, and a portion of the extension of the downtown Apopka Trail with an access and also an access drive into the site coming in from Central Avenue. The second lot, which is Lot 2, will consist of approximately an acre and will be retained by the city. It will not go to the developer and then exchange back in. It was a lot easier to just simply do a construction easement or conveyance to the developer to construct the event space without having to change hands at all. So the developer will construct a public plaza and a portion of the extension of the downtown trail on that part also. And I'll get into what's going to be in the public plaza portion a little bit later on in the development agreement itself. We did get a projected time frame, which is outlined in Exhibit H, which is the last page of the development agreement. And as stated in the development agreement itself, it does state that while both the city and the developer intend to apply best efforts to meet the project timeframes, the timeframes are non-binding and may be reasonably adjusted as needed administratively to account for delays beyond control of either party. This is in consideration for the brownfields, utility access issues, construction timeframes, and other items. We never know what's going to happen. One of the things about development is if you think something's going to happen, it probably will. So we wanted to make sure there was some leeway within this development agreement to allow for some of those time frame changes. On page 6, the objectives. Basically, this is the first big one. It says no later than July 15th, 2024, the developer shall deliver to the city completed design specifications for the public plaza and the downtown Apopka Trail extensions to the city's satisfaction. At a minimum, the design specifications for the public plaza shall include a public event and meeting space consisting of a pavilion, the plaza, of course, itself, a lawn or artificial grass. And by the way, I'm recommending artificial grass so that Parks and Recreation and Facilities does not have to mow. We found out that it's a lot simpler to just have artificial grass it still keeps it cool, But the big thing is the maintenance. You don't have to worry about mowing the lawn or edging and blowing the artificial grass off after you mow. Trees, we're probably going to be going more than likely with a palm tree, primarily because of maintenance and root issues. Because this is a brownfield, there are seepage issues from the previous occupants that before the city took ownership of the property, which means that more than likely there will be tree wells, and tree wells don't do good with trees that need a lot of root space. So palm trees, if you get about a 6x6 area, the palm trees seem to grow very easily within that type of a constraint. There will also be a tower or focal element probably right at the end or at the T intersection between Central Ave and Fifth Street. Basically, it's like if you're coming down Fifth Street, you will have arrived when you see this tower. Public restrooms, this is something that was not thought about back a year and a half, 2 years ago. So this is a good design element. If we have a public space, you do need restrooms. We don't want to have to rely on people utilizing the businesses around there just to go to the bathroom. And they are lockable, by the way. So this is something very similar to what was done down at Claremont when I was there. So there's an open space area, and then we also are looking at a food truck staging area along Central Ave. This is in conjunction with the underground electrical boxes that we were budgeting for in the CRA to allow for food trucks when we have events downtown, that we don't have to worry about having generators and the noise and the pollution from generators. They can simply plug into the outlets and do their food truck thing. And then other items that are identified in the Exhibit E, which is, let me pop this up real quick just for something so that everybody can look at this as we're talking. By the way, this was a real quick rendition. The applicant was able to get one of the buildings in at 30 units. The other one, there might have to be a little bit of a movement, I guess you could say, for I'm trying to get there we go, to allow for a 30-unit building here. But this is one of those things that we don't know until we get all the parameters for the measurements and everything. But we still have the pavilion. We've got a lawn area, tower area here, and then restrooms over in this area here, at least at this stage. The access that I mentioned was coming off of Central Avenue is back here. Also, 4th Street comes up around this area here. So there's 2 entrances there. And then, of course, coming off of Marvin C. Zanders, there's a third access point. So we've got multiple access points for this parking area. This would only be a one-way in coming into the parking also, coming off of Central Ave. Regarding the plat, this, as we all know, this is the legal recordation of property. The developer is going to be preparing the legal descriptions for each of the lots, and the city will process the plat for the approvals by Planning Commission and City Council. So that'll be our first look at where the property lines actually are. This allows also up to 180 days for the process, but typically the plats don't take half a year to produce, so we're looking at cutting that down to probably about 3, maybe 4 months or so. But that'll set us off so that the developer, they'll know exactly where to be able to put a lot of the facilities once the plat is drafted up and we process that. On page 6 and 7, the developer will be submitting applications for the major development plan, which is referred to that as the MDP for major development plan, and then also the construction site plan, which is the CSP. Both of those actually the MDP does go through Planning Commission and City Council, and just like normal process, the CSP goes through just the Development Review Committee itself, the DRC. Upon completion and approval of the CSP, the city will be conveying Lot 1 of the site to the developer. At that point, they're off and running. The project development itself, the developer will also be constructing the public plaza on Lot 2, along with the construction of the apartments and any other improvements on Lot 1 for the developer itself. The developer shall also fully complete the construction of the public plaza and all their improvements for on Lot 2 that they need to the satisfaction of the city on or before January 15th, 2026. So we've got a little over a year and a half. That's still a fairly progressive timeframe. And then also prior to the issuance of the CO for any unit within the first building of the apartments themselves. Whether or not they're going to be building both of the apartment complexes at the same time, that'll be up to them, but they're going to shoot for one of the buildings, probably the longer one directly adjacent to the longer portion of the plaza. The developer will be completing the construction of the apartments within 3 years of the effective date of the agreement and is entitled to a 180-day extension if requested in writing. Again, we try to put in some parameters that, based on regular development schedules, you don't know what's going to happen and whether or not that extension is going to occur. I do the same thing with the CRA assistance programs. We allow for a couple of 30-day extensions as needed. Page 8. The city will be vacating portions of West Station Street, West 5th Street, and more than likely a portion of West 4th Street may also be included. The vacations will be processed through the plat process, as I noted once before, but that we can vacate streets without having to do a separate vacation. If this wasn't being platted, yes, we would have to do a vacate, and that would go through Planning Commission and City Council. But because this is going to be platted, we can do that with a plat. Speeds it up quite a bit. Another portion is that the city will be granting the developer a recreational impact fee credit in the amount of $50,000 as consideration towards the construction of the pavilion within Lot 2 of the public plaza. The original idea was that we were going to just pay $50,000 towards that. It was a lot simpler to simply let the developer do that, since they're going to be on the site doing the construction all at the same time. Obviously, the design is going to be a collaboration between the developer and the city itself in terms of the design and what it looks like, to make sure that it fits the downtown and fits the development itself, the overall development. This amount is to be conveyed within 3 business days of obtaining the a building permit for the improvements onto Lot 2, which is the city's portion again. Drainage easements for stormwater to Martin's Pound is also part of this, along with any other stormwater. There will be easements that will also be worked out between the city and the developer for utilities, drainage easements, any other utilities that may or may not be needed. Well, it may be needed. The developer will also be providing performance and maintenance bonds and letters of credits for the development itself. As I mentioned previously, the density is capped at 60 units and is going to be built in accordance with the Live Local Act, which does allow for 60 units, allows up to 36 units that would be considered the affordable units in accordance with the Live Local Act. Please keep in mind it is a commercial property, so if they were to own it, they would have that right. But again, this is a development agreement, so we're specifying the parameters of the development itself. Each apartment does have an outside balcony, which is in accordance with the code, which is 5 feet by 6 feet, and they do have interior washers and dryers. Porches are optional on the first floor. I don't think they've gotten to that point where they know if they're going to have an outside porch that'll be fenced off for each of the units or not. Obviously, that's a good option that they could put in. Signage is also going to be in accordance with the Land Development Code. And the project itself is going to be developed in accordance with the comprehensive plan. So with that, again, like I mentioned, this is probably one of the longer development agreements that I've seen. It's got a lot of detail on it. And that's my presentation for the development agreement itself.
All right. Any questions for Jim? Yes, Member Williams?
There it is. There we go. I just have a couple of questions. I hope it's just a couple. But is the conveyance, when does that happen? At what point in the process is the property being conveyed to the developer?
Just after the plat approvals. So that way we know exactly what we're deeding over to them. They'll have a legal description for that, and that'll be probably just through a quitclaim deed.
So my question related to that is, so the property is deeded over. I don't recall seeing anything in the agreement that once the property is deeded over, yes, they have certain time periods to comply, to, submit plans and whatnot. But if for some reason that never happens, then what is the recourse?
If the development is not completed within a 3-year period, then either party has the right to basically void the agreement, and then they have to deed the property back to the city.
So is that in here?
Yes,
Where's that?
that is, let's see.
I saw that the
remember where
agreement
that-
can be terminated, but,
I mean, if we don't build it, it's a major breach of the development agreement.
Correct, yeah.
but the issue is that the property at that point has already been deeded over. And then to try to recapture that property, how do you do that without going through some type of
If,
lawsuit or whatnot? Because in here it just says that there's a right to terminate this agreement, which that would terminate, the rights to develop or whatnot, but that doesn't necessarily return the ownership of the property back to the city unless there's got to be something in the deed that dictates, if the developer doesn't perform, then that property would either revert back to the city or something along that nature.
you want to come up? Yeah.
Do we have legal counsel here this evening?
Andrew did not come in.
And we're doing agreement reviews and there's no legal counsel here?
Oh, she's here. Yeah.
But unfortunately, I don't represent the
Oh,
city,
okay.
so it needs to be somebody to, and this, to me, is a critical issue. If we're agreeing to convey property, but then there's nothing, at least not to my knowledge on the information that I have, there's nothing once the property is deeded. Yes, we can terminate this agreement, but now the property is in the name of, ABC. And unless there'll be something in the deed, maybe you have the information on that there's some type of deed restriction, or the city retains some type of right of repurchase or right of first refusal. I don't know how we manage that.
I know, I guess you could say our loan agreement will have payment and, we'll need payment and performance bonds for our loan agreement. So if we don't, for whatever reason, don't perform, the bank will step in and finish the project.
Which is, that's
But
that's for the
we're not in
benefit of the bank.
We're not in the business of, we're very experienced folks, and we're not in that business, but the protection for the city would be, once construction starts, the lender will have documents and payment and performance bonds in place to make sure that the project gets finished.
Mark,
Unfortunately,
can you get a little closer to the mic?
Yeah.
Sure.
Raise it, yeah.
So the bank will have financing, and there will be payment and performance bonds, which for whatever, if we don't perform, then the lender would have the ability to step in with the bonding company to finish the project.
which is primarily for the protection of the bank and their investment, but not necessarily the cities. So,
I mean, I don't know. You're looking for the ability for us to, some assurance that we're going to perform. One, we're developers, so we perform, and plus, once we can't start construction until we have the CSP approved, and then we have a lender that'll come in with a payment and performance bond to make sure that we do that. So,
and that I understand, and I'm not against the project itself, but
Sure.
just, have been or know of situations where things like this happen. It doesn't, not that the developer had any, bad intentions or, things just happen, right? And then the project doesn't move forward, or either, in here, the developer has a right to assign it without the city's consent. So let's just say something happens, this agreement gets assigned to somebody else, the land is sold to someone else. Yes, this agreement runs with the land, but at the end of the day, I'm not sure
Right.
without, some, and maybe Cliff or somebody has that information, but I'm not sure how it all connects together to make sure is protected, and the city just didn't give away land for a purpose, and then that purpose, for whatever reason, never happens. And then the city loses control, then maybe transfer or provide that opportunity for somebody else to develop it in a certain fashion, so.
The right to, the ability to assign this is for us to be able to assign it to a single-purpose entity for the lender. So that, while we have that ability to assign that, that has to be in there so that we can assign that to a single-purpose entity for the financing requirements.
And it may be limited, but I don't recall if it was limited to just a single-purpose entity or not.
I don't believe it's specifically said,
limited.
I don't believe it says
Yeah,
that, right?
It
It's
says
just,
the developer may assign all or a portion of his rights and obligations under this agreement, and it doesn't limit it to that SP, that special purpose entity or related to the developer. It's just open-ended.
I mean, that's why it's in there.
But to that end too, when we talk about the time horizon line, it's under
Which number?
Development of Project, Section 8A4,
What page are you on?
page 7 of the 38. Developers shall complete construction of the apartments within 3 years of the effective date of this agreement, provided that the developer shall be entitled to a 180-day extension subject to a written request for the extension delivered no later than the expiration of the initial 3-year period. It almost says they're entitled to perpetual 180-day extension periods.
I believe
without any
that,
sort of
I don't think that restricts us to one specific 180-day extension period.
It says
Developers
2A.
shall
Certainly
also be
doesn't go
entitled
into
to any extensions
perpetuity.
granted under the section of the 4 statutes that's cited. So it gives indication that there's more than just that one, because it doesn't enumerate one 180-day
Right.
extension explicitly.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Did you have another question?
Most of them are related to that particular issue. The other thing is, I know particularly at the last meeting, there was a lot of discussion about affordable housing. There's no definition in here as to what affordable housing is. At least if it is, I missed it and I apologize.
That goes strictly to, the housing finance people. That's the Live Local Act. That's where the affordable housing portion, the maximum 36 units based on 60 units. It's basically 120% of AMI. And for the area, and I believe that calculates out to about $67,000 or $68,000 per year.
I think that would be beneficial to have in here, so there's no doubt as to what affordable housing
Well, that's
is.
what, yeah, we left it as Live Local because that act in itself, I didn't
Is
want
it
to
on
add,
Live
I didn't want to
Local? Oh, let me
add,
see.
you know,
Let's see.
a whole Senate Bill 102 to the, as a reference to it.
Yep, so there's, I get that. So there's a reference to Live Local, right?
Yep.
But since the obligation under this agreement is to develop affordable housing, there should be a specific definition, even if it's saying it's the, 120% of median area income, should be a specific definition in here, and this is what they're talking about. So it's clear, like the Live Local reference gets into the density and whatnot, but it doesn't get into, well, what is affordable housing as far as this particular project goes. It's just saying, with respect to Live Local, this is what we're going to do as far as the number of units.
I did ask the attorney about that, and he said that just by stating that it's in accordance with the Live Local, he was comfortable with that, not having anything else in there.
I would ask him to have a specific definition if possible.
Okay.
And then the other thing, there are a couple places where it says that the development shall occur reasonably in accordance with the plans and approvals. That's pretty, it would be better if to have it substantially in accordance, because you can do it within reason, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's substantially similar to what was approved. So just, that was my other comment, and I think that's about it. So,
That's, and substantial or reasonable, it's still subjective. So it's, that's why we've got the plan in there, and we know that that'll get adjusted a little bit, and once we get the legal descriptions in there for each of the parcels.
I guess if I'm a developer and something changes and it's reasonable, I can say it is reasonable with the plan, but that doesn't mean it's substantially same as the plan that was approved.
Well,
But-
keep in mind, the major development plan and then the construction site plan, which is a result from the major development plan, that still goes before planning commission, and city council. So it is still up to the city council to, within reason of this, that'll be up to them for that.
Okay.
The only portion I can think of in regards to what happens if they default, there is a section of default, and there is a 30-day opportunity which to cure to the default. If they do not cure the default, then basically the city could request or require that the property be reconveyed back to the city. But there's a 30-day time period for that portion.
Yeah. I think at the very least, it needs to be something. If you don't put it, if nothing's in here, there needs to be something in the deed that's recorded that says the city has a right to recapture if there's a default under this agreement, or, there needs to be something else. From my perspective, this does not protect the city from basically donating this land.
Gotcha.
So
Okay. Thank you.
that's all.
Thank you.
Did you have some?
No, I just want to kind of just disclose that I did meet with Mr. Mark Wilkie, and he did go over this project, the timeline. Of course, with our attorney here giving us this input, kind of changes a little bit of what the agreement is. Because, Jim, you know that I'm concerned with that when we
You want to make sure it gets developed.
Right, yeah, I want something to say that if after a certain amount of time, if it's not completed, or if for whatever reason they walk away from it.
Which is
that we
same thing,
the
yeah.
city regains that property back,
Yep.
so that is a concern.
So first one that jumps off the page at me, under recitals, number or letter L on page 2, the city intends to support the project through conveyance of a portion of the property to the developer and payment to developer of a portion of the developer's development cost attributable to the public plaza. That's a pretty loaded statement. How much is a portion? This is exactly what I was alluding to when we first started talking about this.
That's right now, that's the $50,000 that goes towards the pavilion. Otherwise, it would have, any other amounts would have been within the body of the
Well, why not
DA,
enumerate it there or quantify it there, I should say?
as noted in section for that portion. We could do that.
And then 2, yeah, there's reference to the improvements on the public plaza, but from a city perspective, we don't have anywhere in here what our minimum viable requirements would be for those amenity improvements. So, like I said before, okay, we say pavilion, what does that mean? It's supposed to be a performing pavilion, I'm assuming. So are there electrical components? Are there lighting components? Is there raised stage components? Where do we get that in terms of this? And, just on the concept plan, yeah, we can draw some boxes and slap a label on it, but from a city perspective, what are we truly getting? It's not anywhere in this agreement. And so, if we had some legal counsel here to provide guidance from a question I might have is, obviously this is a contract. If we were to agree to this, it's a contractually binding document at this point. This would be, I would assume, the prevailing document on this project. And if we don't have anywhere within this agreement from a city perspective that these are the minimum viable for the pavilion, the plaza space, the lawn space, what the tower focal element needs to look like, it creates ambiguity that I don't think should exist. And then my final point would be, on that extension period, it shouldn't just be a blanket, hey, as long as the developer writes us and asks us for a 180-day extension, it should really be subject to this board's approval if they're going past 3 years. That's a fairly extended life cycle. No, that's my feedback.
Member Smith?
My only question was in reference to the closing of the two roads, that's Fifth Street and Station Street. You said that that can be done at the time of
Plating.
platting,
Yep,
and so there's nothing needs to be done prior to that.
correct.
All right.
Anybody else?
No, my questions originally were in reference to impact fee credits and the $50,000 payment, how that was being broken down to, but I was reassured by staff and by the developer that that's impact fee, so that absolutely makes sense there. In reference to the default concerns, obviously it is enumerated in here in some capacity. And then in reference to the specifications on the plaza, things like that, I think because we still have, we're not platted, we're not that, there's a lot of ambiguity that kind of has to be built into this. So I don't know to what extent, unless we plat it first, it makes it tough to,
We're platting it before we turn over any property to the developer.
but they're paying for it, correct? Or it's,
They're putting the plat together. They're
Through
putting
the-
the
yeah,
plat,
okay.
yep. And that has to be done in accordance with the city codes, just like any other plat.
okay. No, yeah, no, I understand. And I'm hearing the concerns as well, that there's some ambiguity in here, but I guess getting too specific with it can get us into additional trouble as well down the road if we do need to massage this a little bit, depending on whatever it may be. So, yeah,
Yeah.
just as a comment, I don't need any feedback on that, but unless you want to, but.
Okay. Yeah, a couple of things. One of the things, when I was looking at the 180-day, it does say entitled to a 180-day extension,
Yep, but then after that, it kind of
subject to
changes
a
the
written
language.
request
Yeah.
for the extension delivered no less than expiration of the initial 3 years. So to me, if I added a single 180
You
day.
might put parenthetically one, if that's what you mean. Like, again, you're leaving little letters up to interpretation.
It's,
Are you legally
no,
able to
I
answer the
understand. No,
question?
I understand that, yeah.
So-
But that's how I had read it originally, was but if we put in a single, then that would specify it. At least I think. Have to double check that.
But why not have the minimum requirements for the amenities as an exhibit to this?
Well-
agreement? Because again,
For the design of the plaza, it does specify that that will be worked out between staff and the city and the developer for what is going into the plaza itself. We don't know how many trees are going to be there. We don't know exactly where the plaza is going to be. We don't know how tall the trees are going to be. We don't have all those specifications until we sit down with the developer and go through those and make the specifications before we bring it to city council, planning commission and city council for approval. So city council and planning commission still get to approve everything that's going into it, whether or not there's electrical or whether or not the bathrooms have one or two stalls, or how tall the tower is or what the tower looks like. Those are all items that the planning commission and city council get to review before they get approval of the major development plan.
but Mr. Hitt, nowhere in there does it say that it's subject to city council or CRA board approval. It just says the city. So again, what I'm trying to get at is, if you're saying that you haven't even measured the spot to know if we can fit 5 trees or 10 trees, how do you know what size pavilion would be sufficient or if it's going to have enough space? And that's my point, is to have the minimum requirements and listed within an exhibit that says, here's general specifications. And then the finer points of design work, okay, I guess that can come later, but from an agreement perspective, again, if we were to say approved, pencils down on this agreement, we just talk about a pavilion, some restrooms, a focal point tower, and grassy area. And what does that look like? Who has the final say? Because this developer's agreement doesn't say that final say goes to the CRA board or city council.
It does talk about the major development plan. Developer obligations says developer shall construct the project in accordance with the MDP and the CSPs once approved by the city through the standard review process. So all that does go to you, and it is specified on page 7.
Which section?
Number 8, development project, A, developer obligations to the project, 1. And that's, again, it talks about the MDP and the CSP, and as in accordance with the design standards of the city's land development code as set forth in the agreement. Additionally, developer shall reasonably adhere to the exterior and interior finishes as detailed and outlines for Exhibit E. But again,
But
until we
those don't exist
know
for
the
the
until we
public
know the
plaza
plat,
space.
we don't know the dimensions that are going to actually be available in order to be able to put everything in. It's
But-
kind of,
But again, there's concept, there's visual cues, what the textures, what it's going to look like from the apartments. That's in Exhibit A. But the public plaza components, and that's what I'm most concerned about, is the delivery of the public plaza components, the amenities, because that's what the general public is more interested in at this point. And that's not anywhere in the Exhibit E. So there's nothing in this document that says, again, if this was agreed, we have to live by what's written in here and what exists. And that does not exist for the public plaza amenities within this current plan or agreement.
the drawing does have a lot of locations of what things are going where, but again, up until we get the design components that get approved by all of you, they can't do a full set of design components that is part of an MDP and a CSP.
But they did it for the apartments.
That's as close as what they've got because they already have that as a design component that they built someplace before.
Can I ask a real quick question? Are at this point in the process, are we able to approve with conditions right now if we want to add in X, Y, and Z? Same thing if we go to council, we're going to approve this with X, Y, and Z, assuming that the developer approves, or is this I take it or leave it as is right now? Or is that a legal question for our council?
I believe it would be a legal question in regards to this. I think one of the primary things that is that hold on portion, pardon me, it's that one section that had the 30-day, the default portion. I think that's where we'd have to have a legal opinion as to if something gets defaulted on, and at what stage does it get defaulted on, whether or not the property would be reconveyed, and under what conditions. I don't know if that's something that we could have, even with the legal here, if we could have come up with something that was satisfactory without both legal entities discussing that.
So the question is, did we ask Mr. Hand to come in for the CRA?
I didn't say, Andrew, I'll see you at 6 o'clock. I honestly thought he was going to be here because that's what happened at the last meeting. I said, we did need you here. And everybody did get copied on this.
Mr. Shepherd should be here in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So we can get some detail, just a comfort level, I guess, once he gets here. I know it's wasting a little time, but just to get that comfort level and be able to ask those questions, it may make sense to wait until he gets here.
Okay.
Well, why don't we just open it up to the public then, and then we'll hopefully.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, and we can wrap it up.
Anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? Yeah, come on.
Good afternoon, Mina Robinson, 58 East Main Street. I just want to let the council know that I reached out to everyone on the council. I don't know if you're Miss Williams or Miss Knoll. Are you Miss Williams?
Williams.
Miss Williams, okay. I reached out to all of you guys, and I didn't get a response for you, and I didn't get a response from Miss Knoll, and I didn't get a response from Mr. Becker. So everyone else I did get a response from to try to meet with you all beforehand to kind of get things kind of mapped out before we got here, and try to get questions out, anything you questions, comments, or concerns that you had beforehand, try to get you to meet and so we can hash it out before we got to this point. So I just want to put that on record that I did reach out and I didn't get a response from everyone that's having a question today. We did reach out beforehand and try to give you guys insight on what we're doing and how we're doing it. Also, we've been working on this project for about 2 years now. Anything that's going on with the community, the first time we came for approval, everyone was here and they gave their feedback and wanted to let everyone know how big of an impact it would be for our community. Now, no one's not really here because it's really formality that this is what they're thinking, but all of the questions are coming up and things are being said. But the community really needs this. And Mr. Head and the developers and myself, we've been working on it. And this is something that is really needed for the downtown area. We don't take it lightly for our community. We believe in what we're doing here, and we don't want it to get caught up in anything negative. This is all positive that we're doing, and we don't want it to get caught up again because it already got caught up once for a whole year in negativity. So we want positive, and we want development, and we want growth in our community. So that was the whole reason of reaching out, letting everyone know, being transparent. It needs it. There's development going on the other side of in the Wekiva area and all of those areas. They're being developed. When it comes down to this side of town, there's nothing going on. So we don't want to get caught up and get left behind. And if these people want to come in and help our community grow, because you're giving them the land, but they're still developing the land. It's like a $10 million project, so it's not free. So I get everything that's going on with, you want to make sure the dots are, the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, but we need it. So we're missing out here. So let's not get caught up in anything else that's going on. They've been fighting for it. They put in a bid 3 times. They want to do it. So we don't want to get caught up in the parameters of negativity. We need it. I mean, some of the people are leaving, new people are coming in, but I get it, but we need growth. So I just wanted to put that on record that we did reach out. We didn't get a response from a lot of people that are asking questions, but we did open the door to do this before we got here, so we wouldn't have to run a whole hour talking about things that we could have talked about in the meeting before we got here.
And I'll take this opportunity to address that. And I appreciate that you reached out, and I have my own process of how I do things, and I decided not to reach back out to you.
Yeah, I get it.
Because we've had our differences in the past, and I don't think that having a meeting and me asking the questions would have changed things.
Well, I think that
But
having a meeting.
My thing here is I think it's a healthy thing to talk about this in the public realm, because there are valid concerns, and this is a contractual agreement between parties. I'm not sure what your official capacity is in terms of this application, but these are all valid questions. So to say that we're doing this from a place of negativity, I think is unfair assessment.
No, I did not say that you were doing it from a place of negativity. I said that
You're saying that we're having negative
beforehand,
comments up
we've
here.
been dealing with this for 2 years. It's been going through processes for 2 years. Today, what we're doing here is not negativity. It's just questions. It's not today with negativity. It's over the past year or 2. Here is questions. You're just asking questions that we opened the door to meet beforehand. But if you didn't want to meet or you couldn't meet, that's fine. And you have the questions
But it
now.
doesn't
But I
sound
just
like
want to
it's
make
fine,
it.
because you're
I
you're
just
saying
want
that we
to-
could have settled this behind closed doors.
No,
I'm saying that I'm
no, we're
asking
not
valid questions in a
selling.
public realm.
We're not selling
of-
behind
of
closed
this
doors.
contract.
I'm saying that it was time for you to get all your questions out and be knowledgeable of what's going on with the project. And then when we get here, you'll know what's going on. Because I think I heard, as far as previously, when you get briefed, right? You get it Thursday, Friday.
Friday,
You have
after 5 o'clock.
You have a council meeting Wednesday. So we were giving the benefit of the doubt so that you can be informed, beforehand. That's it.
I'm totally informed. I read the
Okay.
developers agreement prior to this
There you
session.
go.
I'm fully informed. I'm
Okay.
informed every single meeting that I come to.
Oh, wow.
But that's not going to prevent me from asking contract-specific questions in this open forum. Unfortunately, we don't have our legal representation here that could have made quick work of the questions that we were asking.
Okay, I did not say that you couldn't ask questions. I'm just letting you know that we opened the door for you to be able to ask
So what
questions
exactly are you saying
beforehand.
by saying
I'm
that
saying-
you opened the door?
I'm saying that we opened the door beforehand, before this meeting. You could have met with us like everyone else did.
What would that have accomplished that we're
I'm not
not
sure.
accomplishing here right
It would.
now?
I'm not sure. I'm not
Exactly.
sure.
So why are you making that observation
Oh,
if
wow.
you're not
We-
sure about what the end
You
result
know,
would have been?
Commissioner Becker, I've
Let's-
always
can
respected
we-
you.
We'll move on to the next.
Right. I've always respected
free
him.
exchange,
I've
yeah.
always respected him. But today is like.
And our counsel's here too, so this
Right.
is.
So let's go.
Because you came up there and you
I'm
made the
just-
statement
yeah,
about
I'm
who
gonna say-
responded
I
to
said
you
what I
and who
said.
didn't for a reason.
I said what I
Ms.
said.
Robinson.
I said what I said, Mr. Becker.
okay.
And that's what I wanted everyone to know. Ms. Williams.
you.
Well, I
appreciate
Ms.
just
Knoll.
want to say I didn't see your email until last night. I also work
Okay.
a full-time job. I don't get
Yeah,
briefs because I'm not a
understandable.
member of the council. And the same question, and I'm assuming the same. So I'm not taking it personal, but at the same time, I think, recognize that there are also people that, particularly emails that come through Gmail with unrecognized addresses, a lot of times they don't even hit my inbox.
No, that's understandable.
So,
Okay.
That's
so I
understandable.
just wanted to let you know
Okay.
that I did. I saw it last night,
Okay.
and same with me. I still would ask the same questions that I'm asking now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public?
I'm not sure if Mark Wilkie, 609 East Pine Street, with Bench Development. In regards to the design specifications for the public plaza, we really went into this at the core of it, that the design specifications would be subject to the master development plan process, where DRC, Planning Commission, as well as City Commission would have a chance to look at would have a chance to approve final design. Concerns about that certainly would have been a question that we could have addressed and possibly included what we included. So when we came here, Commissioner or council member, sorry, I'm in front of our several
Don't worry about the
municipalities.
formality.
We could have addressed that, and we've actually, as part of our RFP, we gave examples of stage focal points and something that we had in mind with the idea that as we went through the process and we're with the city staff, and that's subject to the master development plan process, you would have had that opportunity to have any input about, hey, the stage is too small, this is too big, and we have every intention, although I understand you're leaving us, but we have every intention before July 15th of sitting down and saying, hey, here's our first submission, here's comments back from staff, do we have anything from you? Because if we've been anything during this 3-year process, it's been sitting down, meeting with staff, trying to find out that situation and agreements and processes that works for everybody so that we have those safety concerns. If we have, and if we're going to, if you want to add the number 1 instead of I don't have a problem with that. I mean, that's easy. As far as the design specifications, if we can agree that we'll at least put in what we submitted with the RFP as part of an example of what we have in mind for presenting for the process for you all to approve one more time, more than happy to do that.
Yeah, and I fear that in my line of questioning, things get misconstrued a little bit. But let me start out by saying I appreciate the provision in the agreement where it talks about COs won't be issued until the public plaza pieces are constructed. So I appreciate that. That's a great clause to have in the developers agreement. And my comment is more to our own staff versus you, because play this one out. If we're not clear about our minimum viable requirements on what do these public plaza amenities look like, and then you go and you submit a design specification that's completely out of the realm of what everybody was thinking inside City Hall, okay, how many cycles are you going to have to go through to get it right in terms of, okay, we didn't realize that you had to have these components in the pavilion. Oh, gosh. And then you submit a design, it gets rejected. You're going through all these iterations of the design. And then you realize that your COs are not going to get issued until the design and public plaza stuff is constructed.
But we won't, the design, we won't even be able to go through the MDP process until the design is actually set and approved by city staff. So CO isn't issued until it's built, but we won't be proceeding with any construction at all until the design specifications are approved by city staff. And then we go through the MDP process, which I can't see us going through the MDP process before you all have had, the council has had a chance to look at those design specifications. I mean, to avoid the exact situation that you're communicating now. So
let me,
and
Couple of
as
maybe-
far as it being completely different than like the concept plan, and I hear you, what's in the pavilion, I can tell you that our developer has his own rock band, so he's not going to build a stage without, that sort of thing, and lights and power to all that. We've communicated with Jim about making sure that, we had discussed some CRA money to make sure that there's electrical underground and power to go ahead and have those sorts of design elements so that we can have all that. So I'm confident that us and staff is on the same wavelength, or we have the same story or the same expectations about, what's included in and what the expectations are for that, for the design and the finished product for the plaza.
so we got 4 or 5 things that we're kind of talking through, and I know our attorney's feverishly trying to catch up. A couple things I think we could probably knock out, I think, Mark, without an attorney, one is the 188-day extension. Can we just cross out that last sentence?
It's A1, it's A.
Okay.
There's
All
a
right.
sentence that follows that kind of,
It's just, yeah, and I. Yeah. Okay, the second thing, Mark, what if we, and Jim, what if we had, to Commissioner Becker, Member Becker's point on the amenities, even though it doesn't come back to the council at this point, that in this agreement, we just put a sentence in that the city council has an opportunity before it's approved at DRC, that we will have a look at the amenities and get some kind of a affirmative. Is that a?
Well, there we go. Again, what I mentioned before is that the MDP itself.
Sit down.
Oh, okay. The MDP itself that's the opportunity to approve those amenities as they're presented.
By the city?
By the city council,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. So we have,
That's a normal process for anything.
Okay.
Any of these projects that you get approvals for development
comfortable?
agreements and things like that.
And it,
I just want to make a finer point for the record, and I'll stop, because again, this is my concern. It's maybe not the rest, so I don't want to commandeer the conversation here, but what I'm saying is that, and this is a question for the attorney that I wanted to have earlier. So the developer's agreement, is that the prevailing document?
It's a prevailing document in conjunction with your code, your comp plan, and any other regulations outside of it that would apply. Obviously, law comes first.
So the scenario that I'm talking through is, okay, in our developer's agreement, if we say a word called pavilion, obviously pavilion may or may not be defined within our land development code to certain specifications, what have you. It just says a pavilion in a developer's agreement.
Right.
At the time of the major development plan, they could put a pavilion in the major development plan,
Yes.
but they could put and again, I'm playing devil's advocate here, but a 8x8 pavilion with a tin roof, and that's it. And
Assuming
legally
it's code
speaking-
compliant. I don't know what the
Right,
code would
but-
require.
But legally speaking, they could do that. And if we rejected the MDP, it would go in circles, because we said that, well, we want something better. And they said, no, we're meeting the spirit of the developer's agreement, this, that, and the other. That's the point that I'm making. Now,
Yeah.
if that's not shared with the rest of the board, fine. But I wanted to articulate specifically what I was getting after.
To your point, if the pavilion that was constructed was otherwise code compliant, and I don't know, I mean, for example, it would have to probably have hurricane straps, it'd have to be of certain dimensions, the roof would have to be of certain material. There's things in the code outside the development agreement that would have to be complied with. But if I assume all that, then you have a point.
Right. So I just wanted to document the point. And then we'll just,
Well, Attorney Shepherd, I appreciate you jumping in really quick. I know it's a little hot coming in. To confirm, are we able to approve this with a couple
Tweaks.
variances or
Yes.
changes, and then move that and approve that on council? Is it as is right now, either take it or leave it?
No, I assume that you've got the developer's rep at the podium. If you're not asking for exactions, which is another issue which I'm not aware of, and you're just saying tweaks to this agreement that he's already agreeable to that don't involve taking his property or taking rights away from him, the answer is you can do that right here.
Okay. And that was I wanted to make sure we can do that. It wasn't an absolute this or nothing, so.
So are you comfortable with the amenity piece?
yeah, I mean, I've stated on record it's a concern. I think it's a valid concern,
Okay.
but I'll acquiesce to
No,
yeah.
Okay, so the 180-day extension, attorney says we're good with that. It's only one. A third,
And then striking the last sentence on
The
that.
last
Well,
sentence.
I was looking that up because
Because
the
it
last
says
sentence, the one you're talking about says developer shall also be entitled to any extensions granted under 252-363. And I have to look that up, but I suspicion that's for emergency events. For example, after hurricanes, the governor offers extensions that we don't have a choice about. We've had to approve several of them up to 3 or 4 years. We just did one last week. But they have nothing to do with us. And I was looking up the statute. I believe that's what it's referring to, which would have nothing to do with us, but have to do with the governor.
right, okay. The next thing was a $50,000, somebody wanted that, I think it was Commissioner Nesta, the $50,000 put into the agreement for the impact fee credits.
It is in there, and I was wrong. It was just a question I had earlier, but it
Okay.
specifically does say in there, in the form of impact fee
Okay,
credits.
So continuity of thought here, Mr. Shepherd. So
Yes.
in the recitals under letter L, it talks about a higher level, the city intends to support the project through conveyance of a portion of the property to developer and payment of developer of a portion of developer's development costs attributed to the public plaza.
Okay.
Mr. Hitt was saying that the spirit of that is later on in the document, it talks about a $50,000 contribution to the public plaza development. What I want to make sure that is the recital L doesn't keep open an opportunity for further costs to be associated with our commitment. Meaning we cap it at the 50,000 that we talk later on in the developer's agreement. Recital L seems fairly open-ended to me.
Yeah, the first portion of the sentence is in regards to the Lot A, or Lot 1, going to the developer. And then the second portion says a payment to the developer of a portion of the developer's costs attributed to the public plaza. And that's one that I thought was attributed to the pavilion cost of $50,000.
If the concern is that, quote, a portion of developer's development cost attributable to the plaza is not well enough defined, we can put, if the developer has or his representative has not a number in mind that we could do as a not to exceed. If that's the concern, that's easy enough to add in. I just don't know what the number is.
It's 50,000.
If it's 50,000, would it not to exceed
It's
50,000 be?
It's not a payment of 50,000. It's 50,000 in recreational impact fee credits.
Right.
And would the not to exceed number of 50 in those credits be sufficient? Okay
That'd
for
be
you?
perfectly fine. I mean, and that's, you said you'd give us 50, we're going to take 50. I mean, if you want to say not to exceed, okay.
No, I
mean,
just-
That's perfectly fine. It's like, and one.
And I
Pretty
think you
soon
can
we'll start
appreciate
talking about
the
the.
comment, right? Like on
Right.
letter L, it just seemed open-ended at the time. So, okay. All right.
Okay, so Cliff, the biggest problem that Member Williams had is how we get the property back in case of default.
I was writing that and then I got
Yeah, I'm sorry.
sidetracked. But under paragraph M, where they have the remedies section, what would be added there, again, assuming the acquiescence of the developer, would be in addition to these remedies, Should there be a default that is not cured within the timeframes that are set forth in the document, which in this case I think is 30-day opportunity to cure, that the property, which I think is parcel A in the document, would automatically revert to the city. That's called a reverter clause. It's obviously subject to challenge by the developer if they don't believe they are in default, but that is how that works. I recently went through a reverter lawsuit involving, of all things, not the lighthouse, the first aid lifeguard station in Jack's Beach that had a reverter clause. And so that's how it works. They, at the time, the Red Cross said, we didn't breach it, but later on, they gave us the lighthouse or the station. So that's how that works. But it can be litigated. So even by putting it in there, it doesn't mean they're saying, oh, you're right. But if the cause for reverter, i.e. the default, is provable by us, then we would get the property back.
One quick question related to that too. With respect to the deed, is there anything that could be added in the deed as far as
Yeah,
if
that's
the
what
property is,
Yeah,
you're gonna
the
add?
reverter clause would be not only here, but in the deed. Yes.
That's what I wanted to check as well.
Yes, ma'am.
And then also with the, which section is it, Jim, where the assignment rights are? I think it's under conveyance as well. Let's see. It's on section 7. Yeah, section 7, conveyance of lot 1.
What page?
Page 7 as well.
Page 7?
Yep. Section
Care of
7, page
convenience.
7.
Conveyance of lot 1 is what the section you're talking about?
Yes, in the sentence which speaks to how the conveyance shall occur via quitclaim deed, can we add that specifically note? I don't know if you want to also note there that the deed will have that reverter clause. And then my other question related is, right now, the developer can assign this agreement, but my understanding is there was supposed to be a limitation where the agreement could be assigned to a related special purpose entity, but not just an outright assignment to anybody else without the city's consent.
Yeah. The assignment in a case like this to a single purpose entity for liability and tax purposes is fairly common, but if it was, as long as it's held by the same entity that's doing the development, that's normal.
And
But
which is
to give the
fine with
rights and
that.
everything else to somebody else that you haven't vetted, don't know anything about, that should require your approval.
Yeah, and that does not, as it's written.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
Okay, so if it's not a developer-controlled special purpose or single purpose, however they want to call it, entity, then you would want a council or CRA approval.
Exactly, yep. Thank you.
Okay. Does that answer all of our concerns?
So are we going to be able to vote on this? I'm okay
Yeah.
with just the SBE. I mean, and then if we want to give it to somebody else or try to assign it to somebody else, it's going to require city approval, not a problem.
That's easy enough to do.
Yep.
I just have to type the language. But everything we've talked about, I've done multiple times for other agreements, not a problem.
Okay. All right, so we're good. Well, I don't know if anybody else wanted to speak on this matter from the public. Anybody else want to speak on this one? Okay. We'll close the public hearing and look for a motion to approve the development agreement for the Station Street project.
With those
Do
corrections?
we actually say all the changes that we've made on this agreement?
So the motion just needs to articulate the changes that were made.
Do we
Correct.
have to?
If the motion includes all the changes that were agreed to between the council or the CRA board and the developer or his representative at the podium, I know what that means because thankfully I walked in at the time where I could write them all down and I'll get them to you. So I get all that, no problem. And I'm sure that the lawyer for that side will review my work and make sure I got everything right. But yeah, no problem.
And then we'll get a final copy, clean copy? All right.
Definitely.
All right.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Smith or Member Smith,
Second.
second by Member Velasquez. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right,
This is a quick one.
okay.
Budget. evening, Mayor, Commissioners, and members of the CRA board. This afternoon. Evening, thank you. We have resolution number 2024-01 to amend the community redevelopment budget for fiscal year 2024 in the amount of $180,000. During the year, we did receive an excess amount of ad valorem tax revenue for FY '24, and we do have a need for those funds to cover a shortfall of the skate park and pump track project that is actually coming in at 500,000 versus the 400,000 that we have budget. So we want to allocate 100,000 of that 180 to that project. The other 80,000 will be going towards the Apopka Downtown Trail. So we just want to incorporate those funds in the CRA budget, which takes it from a $4.163 million budget to a $4.343 million budget overall.
Okay. Any questions for Blanche? Anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? Not, we'll close the public hearing. Look for motion to approve resolution 2024-01.
So moved.
Got a motion by member Nesta,
Second.
second by member Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna have to take while they get it rewound, we'll take about a 5-minute break so they can get the tape back up running for the regular city council meeting. Thank you.